Hey there everyone, this is Chess Coach Aaron. How you guys doing? And I'm doing another video on fun games of chess variants. And this is actually number 6, if you can believe it or not. And there are a lot of variants of chess, fun different versions of chess, and I think they all help regular chess, at least most of them. And those are the ones I'm going to show. And this is video number 6 of the series. Today we're going to do what I call loser's chess, and most students that I work with, we call it loser's chess. A lot of fun. It's actually also on my favorite, or at least one of my favorite websites, Le Chess. They don't call it loser's chess though on their site. They call it Antichess. A-N-T-I chess. Antichess. So it's kind of like, anti means like opposite. So the normal thing in chess is you want to win your opponent's pieces. Eventually, by having a larger army, you'll get checkmate, right? So if they give you a piece, you take it. Loser's chess, the object of is to actually lose your pieces first. One of the best moves to start the game as white is simply e3. Not a great move necessarily for regular chess because you want to take more of the center. But you don't want your opponent to be able to set you up to capture. So here's some of the rules. You want to lose all your pieces first. If you lose all your pieces first, you win. Loser's chess. If you lose all your pieces, you win. All right. Next, if there is a possible capture, you actually have to capture. Otherwise, the game would be pointless. No one would ever capture. Why would you take away your opponent's pieces? The object is to lose your pieces. So it has to be done by force. So if you can capture, you have to capture. Normally what my students do is, and let's say here's move number 1 for black, here's move number 1 for white and black. So there's no have to captures here. There's no forced captures. Move number 2 for white, though, they play bishop a6. Notice there's a have to capture. So normally what I do with my students is they say to the other player, have to capture or must capture. It's kind of like saying when you say check to your opponent, which is polite to let them know they have to save their king. Here you let them know they have to do a capture. They have the choice of taking with the b pawn or with the knight, right? They could go knight capture or pawn capture. Now, if they capture with the knight, that allows white to now say another have to capture. And this is how it starts to work. White is trying to make black capture their pieces. Now it's white's turn. Is there a have to capture from white? Can any of white's pieces capture black? The answer is no, so white can do anything they want. And by looking ahead, you can already see that black's going to have to capture. So now white can kind of control maybe some of how this is going to go forward. Black will have a choice. And once you have a choice of capturing, just like they had a choice of 2 different pieces capturing on a6 before, but now they have a choice of capturing which one, the a pawn or the c pawn. When there's choices, you get to make the choice. If there's no choice and there's only one capture, you have to do it. But you always have to capture when possible. So, does white want black to capture the a pawn and then they have to capture the knight with the rook? Or does white want black to capture c pawn and then they'll have to capture the queen? Well, queens are great in terms of just being easy to get rid of. They're the easiest piece to get rid of. They're so strong in regular chess, but you can give them away easily in loser's chess. Rooks are actually pretty easy to give away most of the time too. The 2 weakest pieces or easiest pieces to use against your opponent are the bishop and the rook. These 2 long-range pieces that really only move in one way. The bishops especially because they're only on one color. So you can sometimes make big mistakes with the bishop. That's why as white I like giving away one of my bishops very early. They're actually arguably the weakest piece in the game. All right, some other rules here real quick. And that is the king is just a normal piece. By normal, I mean there's no such thing as check. You don't have to defend the king. It can capture. It can be captured. And that's part of the fun of the loser's chess also. Or anti-chess, which is your king can be captured and it can do capturing. Next, all the other rules still kind of apply in terms of movement. And that includes when a pawn gets to the end of the board. It gets promoted. It has to get promoted. Here, though, because the king is a regular piece, you now can promote to a new king. You could have more than one king. So you could have 2 or 3 kings. And kings are actually pretty good in loser's chess. Because they aren't one of the fast pieces, it's hard for the opponent to deal with them. They only move one square at a time. So you can kind of go along with the king away from your opponent's pieces, and they can't force it to go across the board because it's not allowed to move that way. This is why it's easy to get rid of queens. They go in every direction across the board, but rooks and bishops can be dangerous for you. You want to get rid of them when you can. So because of that, if white's turn here, I would decide to let him take with the A pawn, so my rook will have to capture, and I'll get rid of my rook. So I move forward. Now, what are black's options? There's actually only one capture here, so they have to capture. Boom. And now white has to capture. The bishop can't capture, queen can't capture, but the rook can. Only one choice. Boom. And now black sees that there's going to be a have to capture. White's going to have to capture next turn. But does black have to capture now? The answer is no. So they say, ooh, they're going to take this pawn, and then I'll have to capture them with my rook. And that might be bad. Because, again, once this kind of thing occurs, and let's just skip a move, now white can start saying, all right, you have to capture, you have to capture, you have to capture. Throw stuff in front of this rook, and it only moves in certain ways, right? And notice, you don't want to put the knight or bishop on a3 because they protect each other. Instead, white might go c4, very nice. And now this rook again has to capture. Ouch. Because the rook moves in a very specific way, white can start now setting this up. Notice, next move, black's going to have to capture. So this is kind of like a free move for white. All right, I'll get my knight going. Has to capture. Now, can anything capture this rook? The answer is still no. And notice there's going to be more captures. But now there's this rook. And the rook will have to capture the king. So black's choice will be to take the king, so they lose their rook. Remember, you want to lose all your pieces first. All right. I did play one amazing game on Chess, because it's on Chess, but it's not called Loser's Chess there. It's called Antichess. So let's go to that one game, and let's go over it real quick. All right, hold on. All right, so I'm going to show one game of Loser's Chess, and as you can see up here on Chess, it's actually called Antichess, A-N-T-I chess. Anti means opposite. So from normal chess, where you want to capture your opponent's pieces, here you want to give all your pieces away. You win by losing your army. Whoever loses their army first wins. And actually there's one rule I didn't say before, which I want to make sure you also understand, which is, if all your pieces can't move, you're not in check in regular chess, but your pieces can't move, this is called stalemate. It's a draw. But in loser's chess, this will happen where you have a couple pawns left, but they can't move, right? They're stuck in mud. If you have less pieces than your opponent, whoever gets stalemated wins. So instead of a draw in regular chess, in loser's chess, the person who gets stalemated with fewer pieces left, because the object is to lose all your pieces, they actually win. So that's just a little thing to think of. All right, let's get started. And here are some moves. Oh, let me go to the analysis board, sorry. And here we go. Boop. Now I played e4, I was white, and actually I like e3 a lot better, and you'll see why. Because by going to e4, now the opponent can move something on the very first turn. They can do their d pawn or their f pawn and force you to start capturing. You don't want to capture. You want your pieces captured. So by playing e3, there is no first turn for black that will force you to capture, and you're already set up to kind of give away one of your pieces. They could actually, and this is the number one move I think for black, they could actually put something in the way here, boop, and that's with the bishop capturing. So now with the pawn, so I was kind of wrong here, there is something they can throw in the way, but you want to get rid of your bishop. These are annoying pieces. So by doing that, you already are going to give away the bishop. So there's no way for black to stop you giving away the bishop. So that probably is the number one start. But there's a lot of good ways to start. And remember, you want to lose your pieces. So I played my pawn to e4. They said have to capture. I capture. They played forward, and notice there's a special move Amphison. And here they played their pawn to g5. If they've gone to g6, I would have to capture. But by going to g5, I still have to capture Amphison. So they're having a little fun here. So for those who don't know Amphison, it's the hardest rule in chess for beginners to remember. It doesn't even happen every game. Basically, it is if a pawn moves 2 squares forward on its first turn, every pawn on its first move, rather, has the option of going 2 squares forward. When it goes 2 squares forward, it looks to the left and right. If there's an opponent's pawn there, Well, normally you're only allowed to move one square at a time. Pawns are slow. So normally this pawn have an opportunity to capture. But by playing 2 squares forward, suddenly it's not there. And this is the only time in chess you make a capture without landing on the other piece. It's the only time in chess. So this is called Amphison. And white doesn't have to do it in regular chess, right? You have the option of making captures in regular chess. But here in loser's chess, I have to capture, or anti-chess. All right, they have to capture. Now I realize they're going to give away their rook. But this gives me an opportunity, and see how easy it is to get rid of queens. You can just throw them in front of stuff so easily, because they're so strong in regular chess and so fast. So have to capture, they capture. Now I put my knight in the way. I figured let them take my knight. But you know what? Maybe that's not quite the best move. But we're not trying to analyze it. This is a lot of fun also. We're not going to analyze it too much. So I threw my knight, have to capture, they capture, I have to capture. Now they put bishop over. Notice there is no have to captures here, so black can play anything they want. And they put the bishop there, they want to get rid of it. But this is actually not a good move. This allows white to probably get very strong moves in a row. Here's what I'm talking about the bishop. It's only on dark squares. White doesn't have to capture. There's no forced move here, so white can do anything they want. Since this bishop is here, right? If white leaves the d2 pawn, yes, bishop will capture, and then that d2 pawn is protected, and white will have to capture back. And white doesn't want to capture back. White wants to give away their pieces, so does black. So the smart move is get this pawn out of the way because there's a bishop on c1 that's not protected, and that forces this dark square bishop to capture. And now you can see the problem with this dark square bishop for black. It's on dark squares. I don't have to capture it, or white doesn't have to capture it. But now, white's idea is to keep putting stuff on dark squares and make this bishop just capture the whole army. This is basically winning for white. This is already losing position. So in this position, maybe a6 for have to capture, or maybe the b pawn, right? No, the b pawn is probably a lot better. Have to capture, you know, stuff like that. But this bishop move, which is, yes, you want to get rid of your bishops, is actually a great way for white to now easily start giving away their army. And look what I was doing. I was putting things on dark squares with the idea that, and here's more, and then here's going to be more, and I can move to dark squares and dark squares. So I was doing a lot of good moves, and I started getting a little sloppy. Notice I have a lot of time. This was actually a 5-minute game on Le Chess, and 5 minutes can be a lot of time. Loser's chess can be very quick because since you have to capture, there's a lot of forced moves actually. So I was thinking, I want to get rid of my rook. Let's put it on a dark square. After they capture, they have to capture. Makes sense, right? But I wasn't taking a moment and sitting on my hands, and you should do that all the time, and no matter what version of chess you play it. Because when I play rook to g1, yes, it's on a dark square, but suddenly I'm aiming at the opponent. And just like the bishop is really a tough piece to get rid of sometimes, and it's the weakest piece perhaps, the rook is a close second. And exactly why this was bad for black, this rook now is going to be bad for white. It actually lets black get back into the game and almost win. So they have to capture, but so does white. And notice there's lots of have to captures now for both sides. But the difference is white only has pawns left and they only go 1 square at a time. Whereas black has a lot of tall pieces, and look what's going to happen. Munch, 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 munch. Oh my goodness, great move. Notice I'll have to capture, and they capture back. But there's no more have to captures for black. So here they jump out of the way of the rook, because when my rook captures the queen, it won't be captured again. So now take the pawn or take the bishop, right? They go forward, and of course I take this pawn. Boop. I don't want to take the bishop because I want my rook captured. But this is still a really good position for them because notice I had choices. I could take with the bishop over here. So I had 3 choices. I said, let's get rid of the rook. But when they take back with the bishop, and now I'm forced to take here, they don't have to take my bishop. They can take this pawn. Very smart by black. And I have to capture. They have choices now. 1, 2, 3, 4 choices. Well, they want me to capture them, so them taking my bishop on a6 doesn't make sense when they can just take the pawn. And that's what they did. Fantastic play by black. Getting back in the game. I have to capture. And now look what's happening again. I'm going to be taking more of their pieces. And they do have a have to capture for a pawn. I have a have to capture for the rook. And notice, a lot of the black armies disappeared. And at the end of the game, many times you only have some pawns left. And they're very slow, and pawns are predictable. You know where they're going to go. So it's a lot easier to set it up to give away your pieces. So since I had to capture, it's black's turn, and great move. Now they give away their bishop here. And again, this bishop is horrible because it's only on the light square. I can't get it off the light square, so just keep putting stuff on the light squares. Nice. And here, finally, phew, black makes a mistake, even though they're forcing me to capture. Here's probably the correct thing to do. And I kind of saw this real quick in the game. They give away the king, and they keep using this light square strategy. And notice how this works, and black would win. Now, white did pretty good. 3 pieces left. How many pieces does each army start with? Well, 8 pawns, 8 tall pieces, 16 pieces on each side. So when one side gets to 0, you can see how many pieces are left and kind of see how you did. If you had 1 piece or 2 pieces left, you were very close to, you were in the game and winning. 3 pieces, not bad either. So this was definitely a really good game no matter what. So here, though, they should have played king to e8 and keep on forcing me to capture with the light squares. Excellent. But they did this one first, and it kind of changes the position. And notice here, since they played the bishop here, instead of, again, getting the king out of the way, when I capture, they have to capture. Suddenly the game is different. And they gave this pawn, makes sense. Notice, I don't have to play my pawn up, right? And they would capture, but that is actually the best move. If I move my bishop, they'll be able to play over here, and they would win. So I say have to capture. 1 piece left. How does white win? It's kind of like a trap, a trick. And phew, each side has 1 piece left. Great game. But by playing bishop e4 in this position, the bishop will definitely move somewhere that forces the king to capture. Now, can this king jump to a light square? Can it go 2 moves and jump to light squares? So the white bishop would have to capture. The answer is no. But no matter where the king goes, no matter what it does, this bishop will go next to it, and black will have to capture. So in this instance, the bishop was better than the king in loser's chess at the end of the game, in this particular position. But usually the king is very good at the end of the game. So the king moves, I say have to capture, and boom, only 1 piece left. You couldn't have a better game than that, to be honest. All right. Hope you guys try some loser's chess, and if you go to this website, Le Chess, you can play Antichess, that's what they call it, and you can play in tournaments. They run tournaments for it, it's great, or you can set up games for 3 minutes, or 5 minutes, or 10 minutes, or like no time control. A lot of players play very slow games with this too. It's a lot of fun. What does it actually teach you for regular chess? Well, beginners have a tough time seeing the whole board. There's a lot of squares there, a lot of pieces, so they have a tough time seeing captures. This forces you, loser's chess, forces you to make captures. So you start seeing captures a lot easier. And this is important for beginners. Being able to recognize, oh, they put a piece over there, knight g5, I can capture it. And as you get better at seeing captures, you'll get better at regular chess for sure. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. All right, let's get our quick joke in, and let's do a school one. What is a witch's favorite subject in school? And yes, witches go to school too. So you're a student. What's your favorite subject in school? Probably chess. I know it's mine. But what is a witch's favorite subject in school? Why, the answer is easy. It's spelling. All right, guys, have a great weekend. Chess Coach Aaron out. Peace. Try some loser's chess.